People need to understand that passive income is where it's at. And I wanted them to hear my story and the stories of clients who succeeded and people who failed and why and what to do and what not to do. Once you have enough passive income to cover your living expenses, you're done. So we were literally done. I wasn't even I don't even think I was 30 at the time. And yeah, I was 29 when we became financially free. I didn't have to work anymore. Yeah, we did a post on our social media and got a lot of views and likes where it said, "Would you rather be rich or free?" Some people, they want to have millions and millions of dollars. Once you become free, once you have enough passive income, it's a game changer.
I think people get this confused. I'm not talking about passing down money because
Right.
money's only going to last a generation or two if you're lucky, if you're that wealthy. It's the actual ability to pull it off again for themselves. That's the generational wealth that we need to focus on. Tanisha Souza joins me. You can learn what her team is up to. Head over to tardus.com. That's TARDUS.com. That's going to be a clickable link in the show notes. We're going to be talking about achieving your financial freedom in various methods, but we of course, are going to touch on real estate investing and how Tanisha found financial freedom through that vehicle. Really appreciate your time, Tanisha.
I'm excited to be here.
So we're going to start things off by asking you. You just released a book. Where can everybody find that, and what encouraged you to write that?
Yeah, well, it's called Creating Your Income Snowball, the passive investing cheat code to mastering wealth. And it's available everywhere books are sold. So Barnes and Noble, Amazon, everywhere, bookstores near you. What motivated me to write it, I actually started writing it 15 years ago. And you know how you get stuck and you stop, and then it just seemed right. I think it was a year and a half ago is when I started it, kind of started from scratch all over again, because I thought, people need to understand how to mitigate their risk when they're investing. People need to understand that passive income is where it's at. And I wanted them to hear my story and the stories of clients who succeeded and people who failed and why and what to do and what not to do. And so that's kind of what the book's about.
So before we hit record, you mentioned there's a bit of a story there, but it sounds like, how many times have I run into somebody buying out the franchisor when
Yeah.
in the end, that never happens?
Yeah. So it's kind of an interesting story. We were a franchisee of a company called Tardus America. And in case you're wondering where the name TARDIS came from, yes, it came from the television show where they have the time travel machine, the TARDIS machine, which stands for time and relative dimensions in space. And the reason why they came up with that name was because it gets you to your future faster. And so at that point, when we bought into that franchise, it was a mortgage acceleration company. It was teaching people how to pay off their mortgages faster. And we thought, well, that's pretty cool. And people want to pay off their mortgages early, and we can do that. So we started off doing that. And then later, as time went on, my husband and I, at that point, we were actually real estate investors. We were renting for my father-in-law, and we didn't own a home. So we had no mortgage to pay off, but we were real estate investors, and we were doing some pretty cool things with real estate. And I was like, I really want to teach people this. This is what I want to teach people. We can teach them how to pay off their mortgages. Let's teach them how to invest. And the franchisor was like, no, this is what we do. You can't do that. So that's when later we were like, let's see if we can buy them out. And we ended up buying out the franchisor and turning it into a full-scale wealth coaching company. And then I patented a system. And that's part of what I teach too in my book, Creating Your Income Snowball, is my patented system called the Income Snowball. But it's an asset accelerator. So you're able to buy more real estate faster. You're able to buy all kinds of investments quicker using this system. So that was kind of the catalyst to the book. That's how the name came about, and that's how we ended up buying out the franchise.
Well, could you take a minute and break down your journey into uncovering this methodology?
Yeah, it was kind of a lot of things fell into place. So what happened was I'm an attorney, Don't hold that against me. I didn't like what I was doing as an attorney. I was working very long hours, didn't get to see, we were newlyweds at the time, didn't get to see my husband. I knew that there was pretty much no opportunity that we were going to be able to have a family because we wouldn't have time. There was a ton of people, partners that I saw at my firm that, never got married or weren't able to have a family, the older attorneys at my firm. And I thought, "That's not the life I want." So, I definitely have to get out of this. But I had $100,000 in student loans, so my husband was like, "You can't quit," right? I was like, "I gotta quit this job." And he's like, "You can't quit." So I was like, "Okay, what are we gonna do?" So that's how we got into real estate investing. So we started by flipping homes, which I don't really consider investing, that's real estate speculation, but we flipped a couple of homes first. And then what ended up happening was when we flipped that first house, we actually paid off all my student loans at that first flip, which is unheard of. Most of the time, you'll make, maybe 10,000, 15,000. We made over $100,000. There was like 150,000 on that first home that we flipped. It took forever. We made every mistake in the book. I was worried that he was going to divorce me after all the drama we went through. It's not something I recommend to people. It looks glamorous on TV, but it's really not like that. Then I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I was like, okay, we're doing this all wrong. We need to be investing for passive income. This is a job. I don't want another job. I already have a job that where I'm working 60 hours a week. I don't want, to keep doing that. So we did flip a second home, but the purpose of that was to exchange into a rental. So we bought a strip mall. We ended up buying, and it sounds weird to go from two flips to a strip mall, but we did do a lot of research, and I had a real estate attorney that worked at my firm, and he was super helpful. He was like my mentor, and I told him, "Hey, we wanna buy a commercial property, but I have no idea how to do that." And he said, "I'm not gonna do it for you, but I will show you. I will walk you through. I'll teach you how to do it." So he walked me through step by step how to do the due diligence, how to, create criteria, how to do all that. And we bought a strip mall in foreclosure, and it was phenomenal. The income was 30,000 a month. We had a $12,000 a month mortgage payment, and we had some other expenses, but when all is said and done, it was $8,000 a month cash flow, which is more than I made at the firm. So we basically replaced my income. Our expenses we didn't have very many because student loans were paid off. So all we had was we were renting from my father-in-law. We were paying $1,000 a month to live in one of my father-in-law's homes. It was amazing. We had no car payments. We had no bills. We just had an extra $100,000 a year coming in from the real estate. That was when I really started getting into investing. When you start making money in investing, and for us, it was real estate, it gets fun before you think, money, maybe I'm nervous. I'm not good with numbers. But once you start getting into it, it's so fun, and that was amazing.
And then that first time is a bit daunting, but once you do it that first time, the next one gets a little easier. The next one, you build a little more confidence. And next thing you know, two flips and then in a strip mall later,
Right. We were
you,
financially free. That
you,
made us
you
free.
way faster than most people, though. A lot of people would sit in that wholesaling, flipping houses paradigm and stay on that hamster wheel for a long time.
Yeah, and it's tough because you're relying on so many factors outside of your control when you're flipping real estate, and you're putting in money and not really realizing what could go wrong. We had so many things. I didn't even put some of the stories in my book. I put a lot of them in my book, but one of them was we had a guy who was staying at the house to watch the house for us as we were fixing it up. So we go on the weekends, we go at night and we plant things and do stuff. So we had this guy living there, and he literally ran a car dealership out of our front lawn. And someone told us, "Hey, there's a bunch of cars on the lawn." And we were like, "What?" And we went there, and he was literally selling cars. And we're like, "Okay, you got to stop this. This is illegal, right? This is residential neighborhood." But when we got into actual income producing real estate, that was where everything changed. But the thing that I think people don't realize too, though, is sometimes it takes a while to save up enough to get that first property or to do whatever you're trying to do. For us, we flipped properties to do it, but again, that's risky, depends on the market, depends on a lot of things. There were a lot of foreclosures at that time here in Hawaii, So it made it easier. There were literally pages of foreclosures, and that's how we found all the properties we bought. Actually, the 2 commercial properties and the 2 properties that we flipped were all foreclosures. So, it depends on what's happening and all of that, and if you know what you're doing and you have the right people in place. But outside of that, what you want is that passive income. Once you have enough passive income to cover your living expenses, you're done. So we were literally done. I wasn't even I don't even think I was 30 at the time. And yeah, I was 29 when we became financially free. I didn't have to work anymore. So when I went back into the office, I was miserable in that job, but I literally became like the happiest person. I was so happy I stayed in that job for a while until the opportunity came to start Tardus. And so we became financially free first, and then we started the company, and there was no risk to me. I was like, "Hey," we started with some partners. I was like, "I'll do this for free," because I've never run a business before and I could screw this whole thing up. This might not work out. So I'll do it and nobody has to pay me until we become profitable, and then I'll take a paycheck. And I took a small paycheck. And, we were very successful. But the freedom that I had by having enough passive income to cover all my living expenses enabled us to start a business risk free. I mean, there was really no risk to us at all. The business could have failed and we would have been perfectly okay.
Oh, there's a lot to
That's
unpack there, but what I think is
yeah.
really striking is the first is you really leveraged your network. You had another lawyer in your office that has this specialization. He was willing to teach you what to do. And then you were also willing to let people show you how to run a business. We talk about leverage in real estate all the time, but I think this is a huge opportunity that a lot of people miss is leveraging your network and leveraging the knowledge that's around you.
Absolutely. Leveraging other people's expertise. I think a lot of people try to figure things out on their own. They try to do things on their own. I think I told you I'm an attorney, right? But I haven't practiced in over 20 years. So one of the mistakes I made initially was I was doing all the contracts. I made an error. I left out something. We had a partner with the second property we bought. So the second property we purchased, we put $300,000 down with lines of credit. And then we basically got a partner, an equity partner that put in $500,000. And he was a financial planner that managed a lot of millions of dollars. So he was older. I think I was 29 or maybe I was something around that age. So anyway, I made a mistake, left something important out. I'd said, this is how we want to manage the property. That was, there. And we were doing it. His brother came along who happened to be a lawyer. And he said, I think you took advantage of my brother. And I don't like this deal. And so if you don't let us out of this deal, we're going to sue you or something like that. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, there's no way. Your brother's like 30 years older than me, first of all. He's way more experience. I'm like a newbie. I don't even know what I'm doing. And I was like, I can't believe I left this out because we did agree to this. But then I remembered I found a side agreement that we had signed that actually had that language in it, sent over to his brother. And then I never heard from his brother again. It was like, oh, shoot, we have this additional agreement side letter. So I used that. I was like, hey, they're not happy. So what we're going to do is we're going to refinance the building and get him out. So we refinanced, paid him back the money that he invested, and then we owned the building ourselves. It was amazing. It was like, we did not have $800,000 down to put on this property, but his money helped us get in. My mistake actually got him out. It was just weird. But we had a lot of really great blessings that happened along the way. But there are easier ways to do it than some of the things that we did. We did things in a way that the average person really couldn't unless they had a lot of resources behind them. And so that's really something that I think people need to look at is how can I buy more real estate, for example? How can I buy more with less of my own cash? How can I leverage other people's knowledge, other people's, their skills? And that's why I think everybody needs a coach, everybody needs a mentor, and everybody really needs to get educated. Financial education is the key,
Mhm.
you
Well,
know?
we're going to kind of dive into that a little bit more as we talk a little bit about this income snowball that you've referred to a few times. But before we do, if you want to learn a little bit more about what Tanisha does and what her team can help you with, Tardus.com, Tardus.com. And if you found some value in what we're talking about, this show only grows by you sharing it with one of your investor friends. So please consider doing that. If you're watching us on YouTube, a like and subscribe really improves the algorithm and helps us get served to more investors. So, Tanisha, can you touch briefly on this income snowball that you've referred to?
Yeah, sure. So the income snowball basically is an investing system. So it's a way to produce passive income. So it's very opposite of the traditional market. Put your money in the market, hope and pray that in 40 years you've got money. This is basically an asset accelerator. It's a system for investing that's a little bit different. It's a little bit unique. What makes it unique are a couple of different factors. It's the types of investments that you use, the leverage that you use to buy those investments, and then the cash flow as well. And then I have the calculator, which is what I received the patent on, the income snowball calculator. It's unique in that it actually takes into account what you're trying to do, what your goals are, how much cash flow you're willing to invest in your income snowball, and the other things that you're trying to buy, like particular investments that will tell you if you purchase these investments and you do it at these intervals, you will reach financial freedom usually within 5 to 10 years. Most of our clients can reach financial freedom in 5 to 10 years, and they don't have to use all their husband's life savings to buy a foreclosure and flip homes like we did. It's way simpler, way easier. And it's from people who only have, say, $800 left over at the end of the month to people who have thousands of dollars left over at the end of the month. And what they're doing is they're using a little bit of leverage, which could be a line of credit, life insurance, cash value life insurance, could be any number of things, but the type of leverage is important. These fast burning fuel investments that produce way more income than you would get from a traditional investment. That money that comes in on a monthly basis, you're able to stack that income quickly and use it to buy rentals and buy mortgage notes and buy whatever investments you want. And you're able to do it at a discount. You're able to get those investments cheaper, real estate cheaper, notes cheaper, because there's very little of your own money that you're putting into it, because that fast burning fuel investments are buying your real estate for you. They're buying your notes for you. So it's pretty cool.
I was reviewing your website and you have building wealth without big risks, side hustles or real estate flipping. Could you talk a little bit about how your system kind of balances all of this out?
Yeah. So the system itself, the income snowball, like I said, it utilizes things like what I call fast burning fuel. Fast burning fuel is like short term amortized income investments. So investments that are give you principal and interest payments over short term. So it could be 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Because the term is so short and getting principal and interest back, but remember, it's not your money that you're investing, it's leverage. You should not, the key is not investing too much or too little. If you invest too much, it takes you too long to pay it down. And so what happens is you're not able to turn that money quick enough for it to work. Or if you invest too little, then all you're doing is using your own money. You're just using your own cash flow. So there's a balance. The calculator helps figure that out. But the way we're able to mitigate the risk is through the education piece. So not only do you have to understand the different types of alternative investments available that fit into this fast burning fuel, mold, but you also need to learn about slow burning fuel, like real estate, like mortgage notes. One rental, for example, let's say that you're doing this now, you've been doing it for a few years, and now you're like, I want to buy a rental. I want to buy my first rental property. And you find one that generates $200 a month. Okay, and your financial freedom date is 8 years. That one rental that gives you $200, but it's permanent, it's not short term, can speed up your financial freedom date by a couple of years. So instead of 8 years, you can go 6, and so it's amazing. Now imagine what 2 or 3 rentals could do. Imagine letting the income snowball buy your real estate for you. So now you can buy them every 6 months. Every single time you're doing your next investment, you're actually buying rentals with that cash that you've made from the fast burning fuel investments. So we mitigate the risk that way by putting less and less of your own money into it. As time goes on, the $1,000 you're putting in or 2,000, that doesn't change until you reach financial freedom or whatever your goal is. But the income that you're getting from the investment just continues to double and triple and quadruple. So within 1 year, usually you've tripled what your investment income is in the first year. And so, and it grows over time. Now, some people, like I said, they have lots of resources or lots of cash flow. And so the amount that they invest would be more, right? The leverage they would use would be higher than someone that maybe only makes $3,000 a month. That's their income. Their cash flow is 800 a month. And so they're going to invest a lot smaller. They're going to use a lot smaller leverage. Their whole situation is going to be different. My calculator, basically, what it does is it plans all of that out for you and tells you, invest at this amount. This is what you can project for the future. This is the date you can draw the money you need to cover all your bills. And this thing will self-sustain. You never have to put another dime in 5 years or 7 years or whatever. It's pretty cool. But we also make sure that whatever you're investing in, you do your due diligence, right? I talk about this in my book too. I talk about investment criteria, having clear criteria, due diligence on vendors, due diligence on every investment, what to look for, and then having contingency plans. And this is really key. And I think a lot of investors don't do this. Even investors that know how to do due diligence don't have, I think everyone's really optimistic. And so they want to believe that nothing could go wrong. But you have to plan for the worst case scenario. You need to have a plan A, B, and C in case the investment doesn't perform as you expect. And that could be anything. That could be a couple renters not paying if you have a multifamily commercial property, or it could be a number of different things. So you want to have those contingency plans laid out. Then there's no emotion. It's so wonderful. This thing happens and I pull this trigger. I fire the management company. I hire a new one. I do this. I do that. It's all laid out. So our investors are way more savvy and they're able to jump on opportunities quicker than others do, right? Others are kind of trying to figure out, is this a good investment or is this not? Is this a good property or not? Is this a good mortgage note? Our clients, they already have their criteria listed. If it meets their criteria, then the next step is they already have their contingency plans laid out. So if anything ever goes wrong, they're set. They're not going to be in a bad situation if the investment fails to perform as expected. And you always have to plan for that no matter what. Yeah.
Oh, well, it's always good to hear success stories. Would you mind sharing one or two stories of clients that have gone through this and now are enjoying financial freedom?
Oh gosh. Yeah, we have so many. Let me think. So there's one, and actually on our YouTube channel, you can take a look at this one. This one's kind of crazy. There's a couple, they used to live in Hawaii and they moved to Texas to be closer to, I think, the husband's father because he had some illness and they wanted to be closer to him. They owned a construction company in Hawaii. And when we met them, they had one rental property and it was, free and clear, and they owned their home free and clear. So that was it. And their rental, I think, was generating like $4,000 or $5,000 a month or something like that. And so it was kind of like we looked at everything they had. And this is why it's important to have a coach or a mentor, right? Just like I did when we bought our commercial property. That real estate attorney at my firm was phenomenal. He helped me so much, answered so many of my questions. But what happened with them was they were like, he ran the construction business. She says, I don't want him around that. We've got to get out of this. So instead of selling it, they just wanted to shut it down. But they needed to be financially free and they had a timeline. But when we projected for them, we projected that they would be able to do it in about 5 years. So before he turned 40 years old, they were able to do it in 2 years. And what they did, their first year was kind of slow, but they started off buying different fast burning fuel investments and they started stacking that. And then what they started doing was buying rentals. So they ended up buying about 12 or 14 rental properties as well. And so the part of the strategy was to exchange the one they had for a few more and then have the snowball help them buy others. So they bought about 12 to 14, I can't remember how many, but they ended up with $45,000 in monthly income. And, they don't need that much to live on. So they're able to draw, I think it was maybe 10 or 12 is all they needed. And the other $35,000 kept the snowball going. So the rest of that money, they don't do anything but spend time with their family. They have a boat. They live on the lake in Texas. I mean, it's amazing. They travel, get to spend time with their family, and they don't have their business anymore, which they didn't want. So, that's one of my favorite success stories.
Yeah. That really painted a really good picture about the snowball because, I think people in that situation, they knew what they needed to live on. I have a friend who said once, we live in a world of want. And we seem to grow our lives to adapt to the income that we bring in instead of just being content and enjoying what you got.
Yeah, we did a post on our social media and got a lot of views and likes where it said, "Would you rather be rich or free?" Some people, they wanna have millions and millions of dollars, and some people, they're like, "I just wanna be free. I wanna be able to go where I wanna go, when I wanna go. Don't wanna be stuck at this particular job or in this business," or whatever it is they're doing. When we became financially free, Chris and I were able to take a trip around the world for 2 months. So so I was working, and so we did this before we had kids. He was like, "Before we have kids, I wanna travel." And so we decided we were gonna do that, and he worked as a manager of a car dealership. They let him go for 2 months because they thought he was a great employee, and so he had a job when he came back, but if he didn't, it was okay. We were financially, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's
Mhm.
one of those things where when you have the freedom to walk away, right? To do what you want because you wanna do it, not because you have to do it, it's like it just puts you on a different, it's a you're just a different person. You should.
Don't you find that more opportunities come towards you as well when you have that type of leverage?
Yes, 100%. The first property we bought was a strip mall. Then we ended up buying a commercial building that had office space and retail at the bottom floor. And then we just kept buying different things. We got introduced to the president of the bank who took a chance on us and was able to give us financing for one of our properties. Things open up to you. But again, part of it is a mindset as well. I think a lot of people have the mindset that you have to look at 100 properties before you find one and all that. There are faster ways to do it. You actually don't need to do that. I've never had to do that. I understand people that do, but there are so many better ways of achieving that result, especially at this time, 2025. So, but yeah, I do think that, there's just so many opportunities that people don't see. But once you become free, once you have enough passive income, it's a game changer. Let me tell you one more thing. During COVID, we had a lot of clients. Our business blew up during COVID. When they shut the country down, I was like, okay, there's going to be a lot of people losing their jobs. Business people are going to, I think their businesses are going to get shut down. Our business couldn't be shut down. We're all online in what we do. But I was like, they need income, right? They're gonna need income. Well, fortunately, our clients had already started their snowballs. They already had income coming in. They were actually able to live on that income in that interim time before there was PPP loans, before they started giving money out. They had money to live and sustain themselves. So it was phenomenal. We had like, I don't know what it was, like 99% client retention. It was like, and we had clients coming in. We had one couple who were both servers at the Four Seasons Hotel. So husband and wife, and they were unemployed, but their unemployment checks were pretty big actually. And they came and became clients while they were unemployed. And they were able to snowball and do all of these things during that time. To me, that was one of those stories that blew my mind, but it worked because they had cash flow and they had a line of credit and they were able to learn all of these strategies and understand these investments and just get going. And so people were starting to see that they needed more than their job income. That was, I think, the aha moment for most of the country. Like, oh, shoot, it's risky having just my job. Like, that's really risky. And I need to have passive income coming in to support me in times like that. So we had so many success stories during that time of people that just, they were like, this was my lifeline. You guys saved my life. It was just amazing.
Yeah, I bet you that's really rewarding. What would you say to them if they struggle with the concept of paying for this type of education? They see it as an expense versus another part of the snowball investment.
That's good. That's really good. Yeah, I would think of it like it's not an expense. It's actually an investment in yourself, and if anyone, I think everyone's read, most people have read Rich Dad Poor Dad and other books like it that talk about the importance of learning this. I mean, I'm teaching my kids, my 17-year-old and 19-year-old daughters how to do this, how to invest this way, right?
The same age.
Really?
Yeah. So I was just going to lead to my next question. Did I interrupted you?
Oh, yeah, it's an investment. I pay for their private school, right? The private school is, 22,000, I don't know, 24,000 a year, and there's no guarantees that after that they're gonna get a job or that they're going to become wealthy. There's no projection on their, financial freedom or anything, and so it's very risky to put that into, and we're talking about high school, right? Then you pay for college, which now, I mean, I don't know, what, $150,000 a year for a lot of schools, including room and board. And so by the time you're done, if you've invested that money, you've put a lot of money into them, and then they end up working at like, I don't know, Starbucks or, you know, I'm hearing
Right.
crazy stories of college graduates getting these low paying jobs. And I'm thinking the parents if spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on that, wouldn't it be better to teach yourself and your kids how to manage your money and invest smart for income immediately, not for income in 40 years, but income right now that can be used right now and could be snowballed and into so much more wealth in the future. I mean, it's wealth you can pass down. That's an investment in yourself. And to me, that's where it's at. That
Yeah.
you can't beat that. I mean, that's.
Does it ever strike you like you got 17 and 19-year-old? Do you believe they could be financially free in 5 to 10 years?
100%. 100%. Now, the key is my 17-year-old doesn't, she doesn't really work. So she's just learning about it, but my 19-year-old actually works. So if you have income, you can do this. I mean, my 17-year-old right now, she's doing some NIL stuff because she's an athlete. And so she's actually been getting some endorsements from different companies offering her like free jewelry or clothing and
Mhm.
stuff. It's not money though yet. So and like once you start making money, you can start doing this, but they can definitely do it. So I mean, they're talking about, Mom, will I ever be able to afford a home in Hawaii? And will it be? I'm like, of course you can. Of course you can do that before you're 30 years old. And so you can have a home, you can have your snowball pay the mortgage for you, your passive income covering the mortgage so you don't have to work to pay it. That's the way to do it. That's what we did. We had our passive income from our investments. We made sure we had enough to cover the mortgage. So we didn't have to rely on our business or job or anything else. Right. So we've always done it that way. We've taught our girls to do that. And, it's a crazy way to live. They're growing up in a very different life than what my
Yeah.
husband and I had growing up.
Well, that's the case. We always want something better for our kids, right? And I don't know if we could pass down anything more powerful. Like we talk about generational wealth all the time. I think people get this confused. I'm not talking about passing down money because
Right.
money's only going to last a generation or two if you're lucky, if you're that wealthy. It's the actual ability to pull it off again for themselves. That's the generational wealth that we need to focus on.
100% agree with that. I think one of the mistakes that people make is not teaching their kids. They think the kids won't get it or they don't understand or they don't care. There may be some truth to that, but there are ways that you can incentivize your kids to learn about these things and read the right things and learn so that they can be in that position. I mean, you don't want to just leaving your kids money. I would agree with you. That's not enough because it will be blown. They have to know what they're doing. My oldest daughter is one of our trustees for one of our trusts. She's learning all this stuff. She's actually in business school in college right now, and she's learning accounting and everything. So she really wants to learn. I'm proud of what they're doing. So it's good.
Yeah. Well, Tanisha, this has just been absolutely fantastic. Before we jump into the rapid fire and close out this episode, is there anything we should have hit on?
I think we hit on everything. We talked a little bit about my book, Creating Your Income Snowball. You can get that anywhere books are sold, Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, your local bookstores. You can also go to Tardus.com to learn more, book a strategy session with a coach. It's totally free. You can see what it can do for you. Get a demo of the calculator, the Income Snowball calculator, see it for yourself so you can see what the plan is and see if you like it. If you don't like it, then don't. But it's always those opportunities that you have to try to see what's out there and see if there's a better way to achieve the result that you've been wanting to do. Trust me, there's a better, faster way to achieve the results you're looking for. Mhm.
Well, if you're ready, Tanisha, let's dive into these rapid fires and close out this episode.
Sounds good.
What lie do real estate investors often tell themselves?
There are no good deals out there. There's a lot of skeptical real estate investors.
If you could go back in time and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't listen to the haters. When I first had this idea, the Income Snowball, I had it way before I launched it, and went to a couple of financial planners and people in the industry that should have known, and the experts, and they told me it couldn't be done. They were wrong. I shouldn't have listened. So, yeah.
Do you have a book recommendation?
Oh, okay. One of my favorite oldies is The 1 Minute Millionaire. That book actually helped us buy the second property with, I think it was over $800,000 down, but no money out of our pockets. The second commercial building. The first one we did with no money too, but the second one we did as well. And I got all of the ideas from that book. Phenomenal book. And the real estate tips are amazing.
And finally, what tool or process has had the biggest time-saving impact?
AI. 100%. I love it. 100%. And we use a
Well,
lot of, so it's good.
well, Tanisha, this was just fantastic. Head over to learn more information there, but it was great to meet you, and I hope we can talk again sometime.
This is great. Thank you so much for having me.